Hey everyone, this is Tingo. Thanks for joining me today. Today's episode is going to be what I like to call War Wednesday. Hat tip to my raid partner and alliance mate Cortana for Hire for coming up with this video idea. Thanks for the suggestion, Cortana. I started kinda late, so my first matchup was actually in the bridge. It was Heroes for Hire, so I took out my Infinity Watch and away we went. Now while that battle's running, I'd like to take a minute to explain what the new video type is. So what this video is going to be is following me through an entire war. All of my matchup choices, my wins, my losses, the good, the bad, the ugly, the inconsistent, the consistent, the domination, and the fails. One of the things I want to illustrate throughout this video is decision-making beginning to end. There are some matches that are just made for each other. There are other matches where you might have multiple options. Handful of matches where you're going to be looking for a matchup that will just get by. And then at the end, it's going to become rather difficult usually because you're running out of offensive teams versus good matchups and you're just looking for a win. In this War Wednesday, we ended up going up against Wrath of Odin was the alliance, and it turned out to be a really great war for us. We ended up winning the war, which was great. But even so, I still took my 14 hits during this particular war, and so we're going to follow them now. as can sometimes happen, and more often than not happens to me, actually. I wasn't able to finish off the Heroes for Hire with my Infinity Watch, so I had to tap it a second time. For cleanup, I leaned on my typical cleanup team, which is Inhumans Big 3, Jessica Jones, and Silver Surfer. And that did the trick quite well. My next attack was against Marauders and Doom. And the Doom was over 220k power on his own. We also had a fairly large Emma, we had a fairly large Sinister. So my thought process there was to go for Kestrel X Factor. I've had some success with Kestrel and X Factor combining against big Dooms before this particular matchup, and so I went for it here. The reason this works in particular is Kestrel will stop Doom from spawning his bots as long as Kestrel is charged. And usually, her charge lasts long enough to not only stop Doom from spawning a bot the first turn, but also stops Sinister from cloning. So, 2 birds with 1 stone, and then you go with a gigantic X Factor and try to clean up that team. Sometimes you get lucky enough and Kestrel will actually get slowed, which will cause her to retain her charged all the way through Doom's ult. And if that happens, Doom doesn't have any bots, and he doesn't do a ton of damage, which then leads to a really easy cleanup. In fact, that happened here, which was immediately amazing and over time frustrating because I really wanted Kestrel to join in, but she got slowed for so long that she didn't factor in offensively until the end. But her defense, which is stopping the clone and stopping the Doom bots from spawning, was so good, the rest of the team did exactly what I hoped they would do. This is a case of spot-on theory crafting when the thought behind the theory crafting actually plays out exactly as you wished it would. Next up, I have Doc Ock Sinister 6 versus Axemen. And in the war meta, Axemen is actually the correct counter to Doc Ock Sinister 6. Plus, my Axemen was much larger than the defending team, so this really wasn't all that difficult. Sometimes you just have no-brainer fights, and that's what this was. As a sidebar, this is one of those fights I mentioned in my New Year's announcement video, if anyone happened to see that, where Axemen are coming to my channel for War Offense. I previously didn't have Axemen available to me, because when Axemen came out, so did X Factor, and I only had a certain amount of mutant materials. I focused on Shatterstar and Longshot because I was still going through Dark Dimension 4, and I wanted them for my Cosmic team. But now my alliance is doing Doom raids. We're doing Doom 1s. We're passing on the first strike and just going straight to Doom 1s. And the Axemen team clearly is the correct mutant raid team. Mine is not necessarily strong enough yet. It has no problems on the first 2 mutant nodes, but the boss node I usually have to triple tap. I don't lose the team, but I just don't have enough thunder yet in gear to get through it. Next battle up is Pymtech versus Uncanny X-Men. This war defense is really all wrong. They have the 3 worst characters on the Pymtech team ranked up as high as they possibly can, and they had the 2 best characters, which are Ghost and Yellow Jacket, at the bottom of the power spectrum. Yellow Jacket, when he's high level, high gear, high abilities, can delete a tune. Ghost, when she's high level, high gear, high abilities, she can keep her team alive, and she will also evade. Ant-Man, Stature, and Wasp are really the supporting characters on the team, and this particular setup, Ant-Man, Stature, and Wasp are meant to be the big guns. This may have been a little bit of a waste of Uncanny, but I didn't really care. I just wanted to get the win at this point. This is my second Heroes for Hire matchup of the day. Kind of a bold move for me, considering I do not have Weapon X. However, I do have a very high power Eternals pair. I have a Zemo that was Dark Dimension 4 ready. I have an Ultron who is Dark Dimension 4 ready. And I have Star-Lord who is Gear Tier 13. My thoughts on assembling this team are Zemo has the ability to clear all of the positive effects on his passive first move. I might get lucky and land an ability block. The second thought was the Eternals can rewind turn meter, and if Icarus punches strong enough on his ultimate and can land a kill, he'll punch again, which if done properly really could eliminate an entire wave of charges on one turn. Then Circe will go. She does some turn meter rewind. She does some really nice stuff with Icarus. Those two pair up very well together. Star-Lord is here for the battery aspect of things. I really just wanted him to charge up the Eternal that he was standing next to, which in this case was Circe, because his battery goes to a random cosmic tune. My Star-Lord didn't last very long, so the idea of using him as a battery turned out to be worthless, but the theory crafting was there. The other thought was Ultron was here to add some longevity. His bots do turn meter rewind. They add speed. They add regeneration. They do damage. They add offense up. Plus Ultron will resurrect in this matchup because nobody is going to hard kill him. So that adds some longevity. I hadn't tried this before. I wanted to see how it worked out, and I really did have some fun putting this team together and playing it. Took me a minute to figure out how to put it together. Took me an even longer time to figure out how to play it, but I really did enjoy it. It was a lot of fun. And this is an example of taking a gamble when you're starting to run out of roster. Next up is Black Order versus Symbiotes. Typically I would say don't do this, but my Symbiotes were over 200k higher, and this Black Order wasn't particularly punchy. So I wanted to use the Symbiote speed to try and rip through them and save my Black Order for later. The correct answer here probably is Black Order versus Black Order, even though it's a massive punchdown. But I really did want to save my Black Order for something bigger later. And I kind of had a hunch that this Symbiote team would be able to handle the job. One of the reasons I was able to make this decision without too much hesitancy was Colobsidian was under 80k in collection power, and that means he should be pretty easy to punch through. We have the ability to place a lot of debuffs on tunes after Thanos does his special, which will flip everything, so those debuffs are going to stick. I should be able to exert some amount of control on the situation with Scream doing turn meter rewind, Symbiote Spider-Man being able to land a stun somewhere, and of course Venom hopefully landing an ability block and spreading any debuffs that were worth spreading. So that was my thoughts behind it. This will not work in a straight punch across. It wouldn't even work if this was only a 100k punchdown. This took a math differential of this size in order for it to work. And now we're getting kind of later into the war. We're obviously up huge, but we kind of wanted to keep the pedal to the metal. You don't want to pretend that the other alliance is going to stay asleep the whole time. They may wake up right at the most inopportune time and bushwhack you. And this matchup is exactly why I wanted to save my Black Order. Even though Symbiotes is a direct counter to Asgardians on war defense, a 749k Symbiotes is not a direct counter to a 1 million plus Asgardians most of the time. So I now had my Black Order back, and I knew my Black Order could take on this Asgardians team pretty easily. This is why I decided to save them last time around. That's not to say that it's always smart to try and save a team for later. Doing that can lead you to make mistakes where you will actually lose a match because you picked the wrong team altogether, when really the correct answer is staring you in the face and you just don't want to use that answer. But this kind of a fight was what I had in mind. I didn't know I was going to face an Asgardians team this large when I went to save my Black Order with the last match. However, I knew I was going to have a match akin to this coming up, and I wanted to be prepared. Next matchup is going to be Fury Coulson's Shield with a Shield Trooper mixed in. 390k roughly. At this point, I'd had a pretty good war. My confidence was flying pretty high. I know I've beaten Fury Coulson's Shields in the past with Brotherhood 2.0. Thought this would be a piece of cake. This is why you don't want to get cocky, especially late in war. I could have taken a different team out of the gate and crushed these guys, but I didn't. I took what I thought was right and lost. I still had some better arrows in the quiver, but I didn't pull them out. Had I thought ahead, I probably would have taken out a different team right out of the gate. Shield Trooper really does make a huge difference compared to Shield Assault. Usually, where Shield Trooper is on this defense, Shield Assault exists. Shield Trooper's passive here is what really undoes me, because his passive causes him to attack the attacking player that hits any toon adjacent to him. When Magneto brings the whole shield team together, that means everybody's right next to him. So if you can't take out the shield trooper early, and he goes into stealth because of the shield operator, which happens here, he's going to pick you apart, because every time you attack anybody near him, he's going to attack you back. That's the main difference here. I didn't pay attention to that when I first picked out this matchup, and the resulting outcome was basically in the cards from the moment I hit go. The only good news here was I did manage to drop the shield medic. Why that matters is her ultimate, which is really just her special, which is really just her second ability, has a % chance to revive any dead toon, and in the case of Coulson, will always revive him if he's gone. So getting rid of her is definitely step number 1 against disassembling this team, and I managed to do that. So now there's no coming back for anybody else. I can go about this with a little bit less reservation for cleanup. And for that cleanup, I chose power armor. Probably should have used power armor right out of the gate, and I wouldn't have had to worry about it. Sounds like a cheesy TV commercial. Cleanup is a breeze with power armor. Now, the following 3 battles seem like a desperation move, but the truth was, with an hour left, we've been sniped before on wars, and even though we had tripled their score at this point, they still had the chance to wake up and come back, and we wanted to squash that. Part of squashing that is dropping as many rooms as you can for the extra points, but also in this case, the room that we're going for is the armory, which aids and abets their offense. So if we can drop the armory, we can really kneecap their ability to come back because we're clipping their offense. Most of our big rooms still standing, all of our defensive rooms are still standing, so taking out the armory, taking out the hangar, those are the two main rooms that we can use to influence their offensive powers. And we're only 2 teams away from being able to do that. That said, one of them is a 1 million power armor, and the other one is a 900 and something K Sinister 16. It's late in the war, I'm getting desperate, and I'm trying to help my alliance, so my first attempt is with Secret Avengers versus Power Armor. Secret Avengers seems to be a pretty good team. It's Captain Sam versus the OG Falcon. Yes, their side is much bigger, but I thought maybe Secret Avengers could do something. I added Punisher to the team because he is skill, and there are some skill synergies there. Plus, my Punisher is pretty big, so took out the Shield Assault, put in Punisher to try and capitalize on some of that as well. This attack didn't really amount to much more than taking some damage to War Machine, kind of getting through the opening phases of all of the abilities with the Power Armor team. It wasn't a great move. It was kind of a desperate effort because I really didn't have anything left that could take on a million TCP anything. So this was just kind of throwing it at the wall, seeing if it stuck. Round 2, I decided to go with Ultimus Kree. Hoped that I could get Korath's special out there to put a taunt on somebody. Use Ultimus's ultimate to try and take out the person who had the taunt. Try and get some momentum that way, see if I could get my way in. I wasn't sure if Captain Marvel was going to be able to punch with these guys. Obviously, if they focused on my Minerva, I was going to be done pretty quickly. But the big problem is, this is a splash damage team I'm going up against, and my counter is kind of weak and a surgical strike team with some longevity thrown in with Minerva. So the recipe was taking a long shot, trying to clear out at least one of these Power Armor team members before the end of this match so that I could maybe mix and match to do a cleanup effort. Not a lot of good came from that attack, other than I did manage to whittle down a couple of the other Power Armor tunes and keep them out of phase. I knew my next attack was going to be up against some long cooldowns, and the Power Armor team, even at a high collection power, their basics don't really punch all that hard. Falcon does. He's got an extra tap because of war, and so kind of wanted to focus on Falcon because he can generate all the speed with his special, and his special comes around every 3 turns. And so my focus was going to be on him right out of the gate, especially since I had managed to knock about 50% of his health off. Never let it be said that I give up on things. I decided to take out Shadowlands and see if I could knock out 1 or 2 of the tunes, again giving me a chance to clean it up. My main intention here was to get rid of that Power Armor team and leave it open for the rest of my alliance to go after the Sinister Six next door so that we could knock out the armory. Shadowland was as much next up because it was my next best team as it was one of the only teams I had left standing. You can tell when I'm scrolling through the pane that it's pretty sparse what I've got left offensively. So this is kind of a testament to the mixy-matchy and trying to do something that can help my alliance with not a lot left in the tank. It just speaks to the desperate times call for desperate measures kind of mentality in war. So focus number 1 became Falcon. Knocking him out really did make me feel better. I managed to get a little bit of traction there. I did not realize Shadowland was this good, but clearly the debuffs really help against power armor. My last attack of the day features Ravagers and an aim tune that I had randomly brought up early on in my playing days. That tune has since been substituted for either Ultron or Shuri while we wait for Star-Lord T'Challa to round out the Ravagers team. Ultron and or Shuri really do help out, actually, because they're tech tunes. There are some decent synergies there. But in this case, the AIM minion was a placeholder in my roster, and I really wanted to see how the Ravagers would do against somewhat equal level teams. I don't really have a lot of testing into them. I do love the fact that they got reworked because I use the Ravagers pretty heavily to unlock the original Star-Lord. So they weren't the greatest characters on my roster, but I had spent a significant amount on them, especially early on in the game. So it wasn't a lot to actually bring them up to level 65. Ravager Stitcher is impressive. The health steal that he does actually does the most damage. I really love Ravager Boomer's speed bar steal. That's great. And Yondu summoning extra Stitchers and Boomers, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. Those guys can really, really mess up the timing of the other team. And even though the Stitcher is doing steals, he's doing a percentage steal, which is gigantic. I can see these guys being a lot of fun to play going forward in war, and so this was just a test run. So thanks for watching the first War Wednesday. I anticipate having more of these, although I'm not sure a schedule yet. Please leave your feedback if you'd like to see more of these types of videos. Again, hat tip to Cortana for Hire. Thanks for the video idea. And I hope you all enjoyed it.